So I'm going to show you some free things, some awesome things. This is that free addictive drums that sounds awesome that Bill was showing earlier. This one over here, I think sounds and looks awesome too. This is Ample Guitar. And this Ample Guitar Lite is totally free. And also makes sounds if you hit the record nipple. So it's got all kinds of things you can do with it. Fingerstyle playing. You can play it like in strumming versions too, and they have strummed. Let's see. Maybe hit the play button on it. Huh. Okay, so that one probably has to go a little bit slower. It's going from my 120 beats timeline. Sometimes how fast your piece goes alone can change how authentic it sounds. You don't want a super slow ballad playing at a crazy speed. But it has this strumming pattern. Check it out. There's arrows for strum up and strum down and use open strings or not and things like that. And you can go between all kinds of different patterns. Quite what I don't know what I'm doing because there's, I guess, keys connected to the playing of it too. You usually have ranges for where these go. But cool things. You can program these all in here, do a million things with it, or do very little if you don't care about getting into details. But totally free. Ample Guitar Lite. They have more hardcore versions of these still, but just the light versions are pretty awesome. And again, free. You can have a great quality sounding fake MIDI guitar that you add in there and can edit mistakes and stuff like that. Let's look, speaking of timelines being too quick, at how we make things slower. This is 140 beats per minute, right? So pretty fast. We probably don't want that. If you don't see all the tools you need, you may have this transport here. Transport might show up and you don't see everything in it. If that's the case and you don't see everything in it.
We're gonna go ahead and black out for lunch. See you guys in there.
Yeah, everybody enjoy your lunch.
If that's the case and you don't see you don't see things in here, welcome Angie, then you can go to this little down disclosure arrow and you can hit MIDI controls in here and it'll show you controls for MIDI, but also it shows the tempo and stuff. Okay. Now maybe I want to change my thing to be faster or slower. I can just drag up and down like this now. So and now so I can just drag up and down the tempo like that.
Okay, wait, now, okay, so that's one time meter. That's on the count off, the one that has count off button on it. There's another time meter up at the top bar, beats per second meter. It says 80 on yours. What's that one for?
Okay, let's see.
You see what I'm talking about?
No, at the moment I'm trying to move things out of the way because I have my stupid zoom bar like over the top of the screen there. Okay.
Yeah, that one right there. You just were pointing at it.
Oh, up here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, to your right.
Oh, yeah.
There. What's that one for?
Let's see here. Okay, this is the note velocity.
That's not a beats per minute.
Yeah, it's stupid because it has it looks like half note equals or something, but what it is you can change like so up here, notice and this is complicating the beginning. All these things kind of are. Welcome Chase, welcome Marty, good to have you here, each of you. So up here I have this thing that says grid and nudge. And then I have like more what looks like the same over here. Okay, so let's look at what each of these little things is. So if I'm entering stuff in one note at a time, it shows this little pencil tool. There's a default value that I can say it will enter if I click with the pencil tool. At the moment, it's selected on the half note. It also says follow grid though, so if I change my grid setting, it'll change to whatever that is. Like if I changed my grid here to be quarter notes or something else, it should change along with it. So say I wanted to go in and I wanted to add notes to something. I wanted to go into here and put some guitar notes. I've got to get it back out of its strumming mode, I think. So I'm going to take the pencil tool, and if I click something on there, it's going to have an automatic value that puts things in. And you can change that to be whatever you want. So I'm going to say eighth note, and now it's smaller note values of how long it makes it. Notice it's actually give it a certain value, but not connected to the grid too, because I changed what it was. Follow grid. The grid happens to be these half notes, so I'll change the grid down to eighth notes. And then as I'm adding them, it's adding them in whatever the size of this grid is. There's also nudge value. And this thing right here, nudge, means when you hit the arrow keys to move back and forth, when you're going to try to move things slightly to the left or right, you can say exactly how much it moves by in this nudge value. Nudge is cool because say you wanted to move something slightly over. If you were to drag something and try to move it slightly over with the hand tool, or use key commands to do the same, what would happen is it would go over by whatever it says on this grid. But you could also make it to move automatically by seconds. So if you wanted to have something happen at 29 seconds, you could, notice at 27.5, you could move it over by 1 second at a time. If you're working with films, you can actually move it by frames of the film. So if you have something at 29.9 frames a second or something, you want to move it to exactly a place where the next frame happens to have an exact lock-in, you can change to these types of time measurements, and then you can move your music over by that amount. So nudge is how much it moves over by when you're doing something. Grid's how much it locks it to.
Okay, so now this.
So questions about that. And Angie, don't unmute yourself, okay, unless you're going to go ahead and ask a question, okay? Because then I get a lot of sounds in the background. If you do have something to ask away, though. Madi, I see yours. Are you trying to ask something? I don't hear your sound at the moment. It might be that if you have a new device connected or something, your microphone is coming out of like a different output to Zoom. That can be tricky to figure out in the beginning. So maybe it's coming out of a headphones or a different out of the jack from your audio interface. Let's see, anyone else coming here? Cool. So MIDI, nitty gritty MIDI. When you're trying to work with precision, ultimately, eventually you have to be thinking about, oh, there we hear you, the size of your grid. And Pro Tools has a really easy to see grid. That's one of my favorites, actually, even though I like certain programs better for some things. The grid is so easy to see and work with. Grid
Can you hear me?
size of locks too. Go ahead. I can hear you.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you because I still have a hard time finding out what's the, like, there's like a, like quarter note, like 8 notes, bars. Is it when you quantize things, MIDI? And I told you I'm using Ableton Live for now, and it says like current grid. So that's like automatically try to adjust to whatever I'm doing, the notes, the grid that I'm doing. And how do I really know like which what do you call?
Which you could say which duration value, like how long
Yes.
they last. So
Mm.
here's Ableton, and I'm gonna go ahead and mute everything in Pro Tools and put something in here. So if I'm playing this, I'm gonna record here. I should have kept the metronome on there actually, but yeah, let's redo that. So get rid of the last one. If I want to do the value in here, Ableton will tell you in the bottom right corner here what value it's using. It says eighth note right there. I can right click on it and then I can change it to just do these different settings. So I can say how should the it says adaptive grid. If it's on that, it'll like try to change as you zoom in to show more detail. So I can have narrowest, which means it's going to have show a ton of values. Notice it says 16th note down here now. Or I can right click and just select value. Like I want to select quarter notes. So right click where it says that, in the bottom, and then select your value. Another thing I can do is when I select everything, I can hit Control Shift U on a PC, which I believe is an edit. Yeah, quantize. Instead of just this will be Control for a PC. If I hear quantize settings, it says, what value do you want? Well, here's one measure each. This is quarter notes. The fastest, I'm going to have maybe a 16th or 8th notes. Most of my notes are quarters because you can see they're lining up with the quarter note grid that I have on here. But I think I have something that's faster. So dun, 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 dun. When I hit some of the bass, I hit it da, 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 faster like that. Let's see where all my notes are. You can hit this fold button and it'll show everything that you've played and nothing that you didn't. It's really nice. So now I see these faster ones over here. Like that looks like 4 of them would fit in here. So I'm going to say I'm going to quantize to 16th notes. So I go to quantize settings. 16th is fine. Only quantize the starts, not the ends. And okay. So now that's wrong there, but so sometimes you have to play with them a little bit, or I might go, nah, I'm just going to quantize this top part by drag selecting over the top only. So you can just hit this, yeah, hit the individual drum. It'll select all those lines. I'll say those are all quarters. So
does MIDI make a feedback? Because I think the answer is no, but I'm hearing it to the project that I made.
You're hearing feedback like, are you hearing like a second copy of it delayed or something?
No, so like I was playing the keyboard and it does play the notes, and then after when I'm not even playing, there is like it sounds like feedback. It's just like a sound, but it's not showing on the notes. There is no note that's saying that it's playing.
I'll have to look at it with you probably sometime individually, which we can set up. But my guess is that you might have a microphone input on. And if you have a microphone input on, the sound of the MIDI will come out of the computer and then feed back into the microphone because MIDI just triggers audio.
Okay.
So it's possible that the sound that MIDI triggers produces audio that then feeds back into the open microphones input signal. It's also possible that there are just stuck MIDI notes. Sometimes a computer gets stuck notes. It's sending all these MIDI commands to play this, to play that, to do whatever, and then it basically gets garbled up and something gets jammed. There's usually a thing for that. I don't know the command for it in Ableton automatically, but you could look for is, you could say Ableton all notes off, and or whatever your DAW is, Pro Tools all notes off. Let's see if I know where it is in Pro Tools. Usually it's in something like options or something, and if I can't find it in like just a minute or so, I just go on, there we go, event, all notes off, some version of that. What that will do is they'll send MIDI notes whenever they start. They have what's called a MIDI note on. There's just a number that says this note started or went on, and then when it stops, they send something called a note off. But they don't always send note offs to everything. So if they don't, then you can hit this all notes off, and it'll send note off commands to all the notes that are in the entire session. And sometimes if you have a stuck note that keeps on playing for some reason in the background, sometimes that's because it didn't ever receive a note off for some reason. So let's see what that is on Ableton. You can say Ableton all notes off. Panic button, all notes off. So I'm just going to open a couple of these and see.
Tim, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, just give me one moment here. Double click on the CPU meter. Apparently that will do it. So this is CPU meter. Oh, yep. Double click on it. And then turn it back off. And I guess it sends the all notes off button. Let's see if that's correct or not. Yeah, so go ahead and see if the microphone input's on, and try that. If not, we can try something else after that. Angie, go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, which program, which instrument was that you're doing right now?
In here?
Yeah, that one.
This was in Ableton Live. It's called 808 Core Kit. It's a drum set, a drum kit.
Oh, okay.
There's something that's kind of like
that one?
What's that?
We download that one?
Well, you can buy and download all kinds of drum kits.
Oh, okay.
This one happens to be in a different DAW. This is not Pro Tools. This is Ableton Live, and Ableton Live comes with this kit.
Okay, thanks. But I got a job, like a job, and I have to go back to work. But
Right.
Are we presenting on what is it, Thursday?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So just submit the thing to you, and then
Yes, let's jump over to that. Let me just take that as a segue real quick. And if you go, where is my class stuff? Oh, probably in here. So we'll be presenting the projects on Thursday. Again, you go to the individual project. It tells you the things to do. Have 5 MIDI tracks total, and 4 of them need to be software instruments. You could have all 5 be software instruments, up to you. I give you various ways in which you can get them by ripping MIDI off the internet, or playing it in, entering it by hand, whatever. I give you some places that you can get it get files and stuff already from the internet. Please read these through carefully, right? I always have people just that don't read any instructions, and then like, well, I told you, I don't know what to tell you. So read it through carefully. When you're done with it, give it a name with your last name, first name, the project, so I know who it's coming from, and write a little paper there about what you did, what happened with it, what problems you had, the usual type of stuff. What will you turn in? Outside of, you can turn this into me digitally, that it'll write up. You'll turn a SoundCloud link, and you'll go to this thing above. Dropbox here. Upload your project folder here. And I do mean project folder, okay? Not just a file. So I choose from my computer. Maybe I go to here, say this was my project, Bill's project over here, or this one over here. I click on it, the whole thing.
That has to be zipped too, right?
Yeah, so here's this zipped up. I take this whole entire folder, right? I zip it up. And now I say open. And that thing is gonna then hit upload. And then this thing's gonna upload my project to Dropbox. Depending on how big the file is, it may take a while. If you have slow internet or you have a massive file, it may take a while. MIDI projects that just have only MIDI aren't going to be very large. Okay, so if I go to my actual Dropbox then, and I go to my file requests area, I'll see, oh, here's the stuff that's turned in. Here's my one I just put in there. Okay. And if you have some mistake or something, you have some issue with it, you can always just upload it again when you make a new version, right? So Madi here had already finished hers, but just sent like the regular file, not the folder. She was just starting out with a new program, and it's not the same as Pro Tools, so there's a lot to kind of figure out there. Then she figured that out and zipped that whole thing up and sent it here. So I would just take whatever the most recent one of yours is. I'm going to delete this. And why do that? Well, that way I can actually go and look at your file and open things up to see what you did. And I will do that with these. I'll download them. Come on, computer. Open the file. And then I'll play them back. Part of what it is I want to see what did you do in your project? How did you work with MIDI and stuff? Sometimes I can see, oh, the way your workflow was, you did these certain things, but there's maybe a faster way to do it. I can note whether or not you had edits and things in them, or see if you had plugins and stuff done in them that you used. And when I see the way people have used things in their programs, it also gives me more realistic things I can talk to you about to give you feedback in that would be helpful. If I notice no one's using a master fader, for instance, or I notice no one's doing some types of editing, or they're doing editing ways that look to me to be too time consuming, I'll then be able to suggest other things to do based upon what people are doing or not. Every class is different, because people have different skill sets and approaches to things. But see all the tracks here. First of all, she's got a bunch of tracks. I can see clearly that it's MIDI. We could load up any of these and see what's going on, chord progressions in here or whatever. I'm gonna hit this fold button to see all the notes. That fold button's gold, by the way. Fold, so you don't have to zoom in or find anything. It just shows only the notes in there. You can see right that the notes are not only in there, but they're all locked to a grid. Also, Mod, if you don't hear the notes and you want to hear them, just when you're clicking on them, there's this little headphones button. Click that, and then you will hear them. It's like a preview button. Sometimes you don't want it when you click on a note. You just want to move it around. If you do, click that on there. Cool. So now I see that. And then I have the WAV file too on SoundCloud. Part of that's just a save your own butt type of thing. If you try to send them a project and for some reason it's not working, whatever, well, at least I have your SoundCloud and I can play back a file that will play back on any computer. Part of it's also because I want you to have a way and know what you're doing to be able to share things that you create. Other people aren't going to have Pro Tools or Ableton, so if you want to share a track you made, an easy way and a free way to do that is just to post it in SoundCloud, right? So that's that. SoundCloud. upload your entire folder and zip it up to Dropbox, and then write your 1 to 2 page, and I don't really care that much, just a write-up about what you did, your process, your problems, things that you didn't know and you want to know going forward in the future. Okay, so that's that. Questions about any of that at the moment? I'll be checking my emails too. Maybe people will be doing this further. Next thing is I see you 5 here. We had I think more like somewhere in the 12-ish plus range of people relatively regularly. Back in the day in the class, less now, but there may be people out here watching videos and stuff when they're posted. Sometimes I look at a video and I go, oh, well, maybe not everyone was in class during the in-person class time. And I've debated about that too. Should it be just, canned videos or whatever? But there might be other people out there that are still trying to do things in the class, but not necessarily being here each time. So for those of you, or for people who are behind and something too, at the end of the class too, I'm going to give potentially some options for you, right? Again, this is unprecedented times. We've never had something like this happen in the US before in this way. And so we all have to be a bit flexible. If you get most of your stuff done in the class, especially if you turn in the 2 projects here, and and you've gotten most of your practical things done, which I think is the most important. You actually can practically show me that you can make MIDI, put it in a DAW, make the microphones, whatever, these studio skills type of things. If you get those basic things done, you're going to pass and do fine. If you don't have a ton of the most important practical things done, like you don't have any of the skills things done, you don't have any one of your projects, right? I can't really do a whole lot with that. So if you don't give me this project before grades are due, and you don't give me and I don't have the audio project from you, and I don't have any of the skill sets, it's going to be difficult for me, no matter what, really, to be able to rationalize passing you, right? That being said, if you want to get all that stuff done the last week, you can. I want to offer another thing. I'm going to announce this as well, okay? There's a few of you who, for one reason or 10,000 reasons or whatever else, are going to be in bad situations where you're stuck in, many people had to move all over the states and maybe into some situation that's not the most conducive to finishing classes and stuff. Many people have issues getting to new places and getting internet, or lots of technical problems with your equipment. You got a laptop maybe borrow, but it's not fast enough to make things happen the way you need in a program. I understand that there's many things out there beyond your control and things that I don't know of in your own lives that you're dealing with. But some of you may want to still try to continue and finish things. If you're in a state like that, I have another student I know that has just massive amounts of work all of a sudden, has to be working like crazy, 24/7. Normally a student getting everything done, and now is behind in some stuff. If you need some more time, this is not a typical thing, but if you really are stuck, you really want to make it happen, and you know that there's no way you can finish things by Thursday or a few days after, I'll probably give you a few extra days for people to turn in things late and stuff before grades and stuff. If that's your situation, and you would like to pass the class and continue, another option that you could have is if you ask for it and I talk to you about it, I can give you an incomplete. And an incomplete is where you basically say, well, you didn't finish the class, but you're going to finish the class. Then what I do is I give you a criteria for doing it. In order to complete the class, you must turn in your audio project, your MIDI project, and the studio skills things. And if you do that, I submit a paper to the school that says, oh, you've completed all your work that says you've done what you need to fulfill the requirements for the class. They give you a certain amount of time to complete it. I don't really recall directly what that time is. Again, it's best to try to get anything done you can, if at all possible, this week. I don't like to give out a ton of incompletes. and there should be a good some good reasons for it. If you have them and you don't want to talk about them too, I don't need all your personal information. Okay, that's your own business. But if that happens to be you and you're struggling in that way, let me know. And again, I'll announce this on announcements, so for people who don't see it in the video can see this too. That's a potential option. And I also wanted to let you know that because maybe that's not the case for this class, but maybe you have another class and you just had just crazy extenuating circumstances that you never had before, especially if you are a student who really normally would get everything done, but other things have come your way. If you talk to your teachers about it, especially community college teachers, most of us that teach community college, part of why we teach here is because we care about everyone in the community having access to things and being succeeding, and it's not necessarily the same at a university as much. But I recommend if that's the case with you, you're struggling, you're having some big issues in class, but really want to finish, think you might be able to finish by the summer or something, for instance, you may want to contact your other teachers and say, is it possible that I could pick incomplete in the class and finish it by whenever? You know, that's another possibility. As a student back in the day, I didn't realize that you had those options, or that those possibilities. Okay, so if there's really messed up situations and the rest of it too, you can look to Mesa College and say, Mesa College resources, academic resources. Sometimes there's people that you can talk to that can give you temporary reprieves from things, this type of stuff. I don't know all the tools out there, but there are some. So if you're looking for that and you're stuck too in the next week, message me and I can try to help you with that process. Sometimes just a bit of guidance through it or someone else kind of like helping you along in it can make a big difference. So that's that. Questions about incomplete or finishing assignments like that for this class maybe, or for your others? I think actually each of you is pretty on it, honestly, but I'll leave that out there for others. So all we really have to do in the class now is present on Thursday. It worked relatively well just to play back the computers without using any specialized thing, so long as we had headphones on or good speakers or whatever in the past, especially if I was playing it from my computer, so I could guarantee that the sound was going to come out in a certain way. So we're just going to do it in that same way. Normally I would have an order. And when my classes are big, I do alphabetical order, then reverse alphabetical order. I'm not going to do that this time, like I didn't last time, just because there's so few people that we have enough time just to go through them. So whoever is here during the class and whoever wants to go first, we'll go ahead and just do that. Then if I don't have anyone that wants to present, like because they're bashful or whatever else, I'll just start, going alphabetically from person to person. But probably we'll just have you guys play in whatever order you like to play.
And well, we were talking last week, I think after everybody left already. I don't know if you remember, but I was asking you what's the recommended class to take after this one.
Oh yes. So let's look at these classes actually together on online here. Mesa. So depending on what you do, there's different types of music programs and classes you can take. So they have probably you guys would want to be in something like music composition or technology, something like that. You can get certificates in them. So we have these certificate programs, and then there's like equivalent of an AA, associate's degree, which is like a 2-year degree. Okay, so this Associates of Art degree would have certain classes in it. We're going to kind of look through these possibilities. First of all, let me see if we can do see if we can find a specific one for the music technology. So this is the music technology certificate, and it shows you all the courses you'd need to take within within the program. So this recital hour thing, which is recital hour, I don't know how to be this time. I assume people just going to have ensembles remotely or something like that. We'll have to see what that. This is where you may have seen where people go on Wednesdays to concerts from various types of groups. They just attend concerts, a certain amount of concerts, and you write about them. They also may be doing things like having virtual ones where you watch videos of different ensembles and stuff. The idea is to get exposure to different types of music and to think and write about them critically. This basic musicianship, if you haven't taken that, this gives you knowledge of how to read and write music. So everything from how music notation works, and all the written aspects of music. You'll also do some things where you'll be, clapping out rhythms and this type of stuff. But you'll learn how to read and write music in this class. This class can be taken at the same time, at different times. Many of my students that take Music 190 end up wanting to take this later because they want to learn about like how chords are constructed and how to read music and enter a lot of things like this. So this could be a good one to take. It's not necessarily supposed to be before or after or anything, but I recommend this as one of the classes to take this one, Music 150. I also know that there's a pretty decent version of it that you can take online because at Mesa class, Dr. Ramstrom that made these, her husband's a computer programmer, and so they work to make all these like music theory games and stuff, these quizzes that you take. So you get like game-ish style quizzes that you take, and you get really fast at your knowing your material there. So if you haven't taken music theory and stuff, this is like an intro to that. I'd recommend that. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. The one that follow in general, 190 is 201, recording arts. And it's assuming you've taken 190 already. If you click on each of these two, they should tell you the prerequisites too. I'm clicking them just to check that they do that, and to see if they give a description of it. Okay, so prerequisite Music 190, and it's a study of advanced acoustic and electronic theory. Okay. Essentially, this one you're going to be spending more time. You would be spending more time with microphones as well as more times with mixing. So we only go into a very beginning looking at mixing at the end of this class because it's a topic usually that you have to know a bunch of other things to do. Everyone wants to do it in the beginning, but you have to know a ton of stuff first to start doing it. So this spends more time on doing that, recording and mixing. The thing is, though, some of my responses to things are a bit
I'm in
hesitant
school right now.
because I don't. Because,
Yeah.
1 second here. So one of the things that is just strange, of course, this semester is that next semester everything is still supposed to be online, right? And I'm not teaching this 201 class. I believe it's going to be taught by Jack. So what you're going to need to probably do, and I would recommend this, is looking to see on 201 who the listed teacher is, and then asking them if they know if there's going to be any like lab portion or something. They have talked at Mesa, and this could change too by fall. They have talked at Mesa about potentially having, and other schools have done this, potentially having some classes where there's a limited amount of meeting, or doing things like having half the class meet on one day and half on the other if there's social distancing and mask and all this type of other stuff, because certain classes that have to have lab portions and stuff don't function in the same way, right? So so that's something that I can't really tell you yet. You're gonna have to check to see if things change. Why do I mumble about all this? Well, at a certain degree, it makes this class becomes even harder to work with online, because unless you own all your own equipment, or have access to a DAW and the rest of this, you won't be able to work in the same way you might have otherwise, right? So 201 is typically the successor course to 190, but I would recommend, if you sign up for classes, you want to get them sign up anyway early, and then talk to the teacher to ask how it would be done. I'm not trying to sell anything short. I just don't want you to sign up for a class that may not be able to really give you what you would need, and that might change the order in which you do things. So say I wanted to take more electronic music classes. Well, I'm not going to take, I wouldn't say take, maybe just open this one up too. Oh no, that's the other one. You wouldn't be taking large console, which is Music 203, because this is teaching you to use a big Sony mixer we have in the studio, right? Unless you end up being meeting classes, just probably don't take that class. Again, you can talk to the teacher of it, the teacher of record, but and it's possible that a teacher could go there and show you all the things, but it really does make a difference to be able to work physically with these things. And so I would hesitate to do that. Now there are other things that can be done, so long as most of them, the prereq is 190. Okay, this one requires a prereq of 201 as well, so it wouldn't be available anyway. But there's these other ones like this, projects in electronic music. This 205A, 205B. Each of them, the prerequisite is 190. There's ones like this, projects in music composition. I highly recommend, though, that you do take Music 150 or some other theory class too, if you're going to try to do the composition ones. Notice, though, that they don't say, it says advisory. That means if you want, you can take it, but we advise you that you probably have taken some basic skills, and including Music 150A, which would be the music theory class. Let's go back to the things that they have in there. So what things would I say right away probably are things that would work well? Basic musicianship, potentially recording arts, and again, you're going to want to talk to Jack about that. Computer music could work as well. That's another one that you could take. Essentially, it's more the type of stuff that I'm doing, where you're doing you're working further in DAWs to work to learn more techniques at working inside the computer, as opposed to a class that's more focused on microphones, this type of stuff. It says one course from each of these. In each major, you can select more than that as well. Projects in electronic music, these ones are essentially like independent things you do. You take the class and you talk about some different things to do, or the instructor gives you some different projects to do, and you make stuff. Right. So it's a much more on your not on your own, but you get guidance in producing the music you're working on. So down further below here, class piano. Believe it or not, piano can be done remotely. I don't know how easily sometimes in a group setting, and it probably depends on how well the stuff is done by the teachers. But I know Alan's been working to make videos, he's been making a bunch of materials for some of the teachers. And so there were like all these videos showing playing scales and doing all this stuff. You could learn relatively well still how to play piano from a distance. So personally, I would do something like, if I was going to try to do a next semester thing, I would do something like a basic musicianship and a piano class. And then I would do music 202 for my, or one of the projects in electronic music, because each of them is something that counts in the music technology degree. And all those ones I think are fits that would still work really well online, if that ends up being the case that we're doing it all online. Did you have some?
Don't know how to read music. Can we still take piano class?
I think so. In most piano classes, you end up doing both playing piano and reading. But I'm gonna double check that because my gut tells me that they're gonna require Music 150 for it. So sometimes sometimes what they'll do is they'll let you take a class if you demonstrate some skill sets. I'm not sure how that would work online. Probably what that would mean is you would play, you would talk to the piano person before the semester happens and demonstrate over video that you can play this, that, or other. So let's see what it says here. Piano class 1. So it just gives an advisory. So then there's no prerequisites, and that means you'll be learning both like music reading and piano at the same time. So that would be a good choice as well. I definitely recommend, especially if you don't play piano, learn the piano. I mean, it's no one ever learns piano and regrets it. And it makes understanding music theory way easier. And it also makes putting music into a recording program a lot easier. Can you record music into the computer with guitar and stuff? There are now MIDI guitars. There's a couple different MIDI guitars that are pretty decent, and more tools for getting it in there. If your wind players are actually MIDI wind controllers that'll let you enter it. But the easiest way in general, which will contribute to your understanding of how music works too with a lot of clarity, is to learn how to play keyboard. So again, it's not fully electronic, but it really ties into that. Having keyboard skills is really useful. So all this stuff I'm showing you, right, what I did is I went to the music page, and I went up to the programs it has. I specifically was then going down to the certificate programs. And what you basically get is when you go through all these things, all these hoops, all these classes, then you get a certificate at the end that says you have a certificate of music technology from Mesa College, or you have a certificate of music composition from Mesa College. So they're made to try to make it so that you can get through things a little bit faster, because there's a lot of if you took a different route, if you wanted to get a transfer music associate's degree. Do you guys know what that is? Anyone know kind of like what this idea of a certificate versus like associate's degree? I didn't when I was going in. Some will know. So, and I can answer and do other things too, essentially. But today I basically just plan to talk about this type of stuff and to talk about the MIDI project, and otherwise answer questions, give you supplemental cool and fun things to look forward to, and then just take any loose ends that we had about things and talk about them, such as like if you can't complete it, the incomplete and this type of thing. So if you have any other questions or things you'd like to be answered and I'm babbling on about this and you're not interested, let me know, and then I can work on talk on something else for you. But essentially, when you're in a community college, you can get different types of papers that say, hey, you know stuff, and some of those things are like technical degrees. So you can get like you can get a certificate that says you know something about basic medical stuff. And you can get certificates here that say you know stuff about music technology. And then that says, hey, you know a bunch about stuff about music technology, and you've taken all these courses here, and so it certifies you and gives you legitimacy in your knowledge rather than just gathering it who knows where. They're less units than if you were to get something else, an Associate of Arts degree or AA degree. an Associate's of Arts degree is that it means that you have done 2 years worth of work, and that includes your major, and it also includes general education. So that means that you would take math, science, English classes, all this type of stuff, and you would take stuff related to an intended major, such as music. And having taken 2 years worth of courses, then you would, if you get an associate's degree, that says you have done 2 years equivalent of a university degree. Those degrees are transfer degrees that mean that you could then say, now I'm ready to enter a university at instead of as a freshman level, I could enter at a junior level. So associate's degrees are meant to transfer to a college so that you can finish your 4-year degree. You can have them overlap if you want. You know, you could decide that you're going to do this music technology degree, but then say, you know what, actually, I really want to get an associate's degree. And I've transferred to university now that I've done this. Well, you've already taken overlapping classes that would count there as well. And then what you can do is you can take the remaining classes that you would need for the associate's degree. So if you wanted to do the associate's degree, the 2-year degree that includes just general education as well as your music degree, you would have to take 4 semesters of music theory, 4 semesters of ear training, where you listen to music, learn how to listen to it and write it down, 4 semesters of ensemble, where you're playing in some type of performance group. Let's see, what else? And 4 semesters of performance, or the equivalent. Sometimes places like will offer that in composition, but essentially, if you played an instrument, guitar, piano, whatever, voice, you would you would work in what's a performance studies class, where you would be expected to demonstrate proficiency in your instrument each semester, and get to higher and higher skill set levels, and then demonstrate those skills by performing. Probably in this time, what it would mean is you would be working on things like becoming proficient in all your scales and arpeggios and things like this on the instrument, as well as being able to play music from different levels of genres of different levels of difficulty, selected by a private teacher in conjunction with the college. And once you're done and you're awesome on that whatever pieces you're playing, you perform them for the teachers and they give you a grade. So that's a typical thing for the community college music major. 2 years of these major components: music theory, 2 years, ear training, 2 years, ensemble, 2 years, class piano, 2 years. That would be something then you would then take and you would transfer to San Diego State or UCSD, whatever like that. They have different transferability of those. If it says on your class here, transfer credit, CSU. CSU means it can transfer to the California State Universities. So there's the next part. And maybe, is she still here? No. One of our students here is a student at San Diego State also. But I'm also a San Diego State grad. My master's degree is from there. And my bachelor's degree is from UC Santa Barbara. So I went to 2 different types of systems here. Maybe Bill, or do you know this, or Ray or Chase, anyone else? Do you know what the difference in like degrees and stuff you can get is from a CSU or a UC system in California? I didn't know this stuff until like after I got my bachelor's degree.
I don't know much because I haven't really looked at it in a long time. But I think I would guess that the Cal State system is more is broader in scope. There's things like when I went to UCSD and they just didn't have like a theater department or their music department was all exploratory new stuff. It wasn't very much. It's a much bigger school now than when I went there. But
yeah.
But it seems like the Cal State system is just broader.
Okay, great. Thanks for the thoughts, and I think there's a lot of truth to that in certain areas. And there's actually one or two things in particular that you said that I think are super relevant to why you might want to go one place or another. I'm going to hold that for a second, tell you technically what makes them different, and tell you about these transferring types. Then I'm going to go back onto what you said, which is also part of the reason why I ended up going to SDSU rather than a different UC or something for my master's. So say I'm taking a class and I want to transfer. Not all my classes will necessarily transfer to all institutions. So there are transferring guarantees basically that you can take where if you take all your classes and all of them say CSU, then that means that they will accept these classes from if you go to a California state school like SDSU or California State San Marcos or Cal State Fullerton, California State Fullerton. All these different places are four-year universities. University meaning there's multiple colleges that are all combined together. So like College of Arts and Arts and Letters and College of Engineering and whatever like that. They'll have College of Performing Arts and Languages or something. They'll take these different colleges, multiple places, and they combine them all together and they call that a university. Okay, so they'll have big campuses that have all kinds of majors in them, and the CSU system is able to give you all kinds of education. Most importantly, they're able to teach 4-year degrees, and they're licensed to give you a 4-year bachelor's degree. So you could, at a community college, you can't get a bachelor's degree. Well, like one exception exists, and it's actually at Mesa College itself in some medical data science stuff. But as a rule, community colleges, the purpose of them is to give you 2 years worth of college education. They're not licensed in general to give any more than that. Associate's degrees, what they max out at. Then universities, like the California State ones, can give you full 4-year bachelor's degrees. They can also give you up to the master's degree level. So you can also get master's degrees from a CSU. If your class is transferred to a University of California, rather than just a California State University, then first of all, it's automatically, if it's a UC, it will also work for CSU. So if you're not sure what you want to get, and you want to maybe transfer to UC, then make sure all of your classes that you take and care about say UC transferable. If they say UC transferable, they will also transfer to a CSU. Not the other way around. So this means if I took this, I could transfer this to UCSD or SDSU or equivalents. A final difference to be in the technical sense of a UC versus a CSU is a CSU cannot offer PhDs. You can't get a PhD from SDSU in general. They're not licensed to do that. If they want to give any PhDs out there, doctorates, or equivalents of doctorates, DMAs, or whatever else, they have to do it with the cooperation of a UC system. UC systems are the only one licensed to give doctorate degrees. So if you wanted to eventually get a doctor's degree from a specific place, you'd probably go to a UC. You don't have to though, right? I got my master's from San Diego State, and I'll get my PhD eventually from some other place. So you can go, the big difference between these campuses ultimately is the California State can give you bachelor's and master's degrees, and the UC system can give you up to doctorate degrees. Now what else? What Bill said is really, really relevant in the practical sense of when you're going there. UC systems too are often much more focused on research. So even though there's research done at California State systems, there's a heavy emphasis on research and on doing new things that have never been done before at UCs.
Yeah, that's by state law, by the way. That's what they were set up for.
Yeah, and the bigger part of that, and Bill, you can speak about this if you want to. There's always been a connection between the main U.S. government and other governments and the whole political system and to be honest, also the military. And so, you know, what happens is the political system wants to be able to have information that's good for the country nationally, and technologies and things that are developed and military things that are developed. There's all these things developing that the universities provide for the whole country. Now, when you go to UC systems, then and you're teaching there, you have to do all kinds of research. And how does that come down to students? Well, if you're a student there, oftentimes what that means is you get a lot more classes, especially in arts, that are highly experimental in the type of stuff you learn. So if you did music composition there, a lot of the music that you would hear would sound extraordinarily strange to you and sound like probably stuff you've never heard before. You're like, that's music? So even if it says electronic music there, they don't mean making dance music. They don't mean making hip hop. None of that is happening there. At UCSD, you're learning to make weird sonic sculptures using techniques that nobody else has used before. And most of the music you hear will be nothing like anything you've ever heard before. Almost none of it will be beat-based. It'll just be like studies of musical timbre and stuff. Whereas if you go to SDSU, you'll be able to get a jazz performance degree and play jazz at a high level, like many of the best jazz musicians in San Diego do. You'll have an opportunity of much more traditional building your skill sets in ways that you're much more familiar with. It still emphasizes classical and electronic music, but San Diego State also has a world musics program. They have a program that looks at contemporary studies and allows you to do like singer-songwriter stuff, as well as like combine practical knowledge of not just music, but multimedia, video, other things like this. So for many people, especially if you're looking to get a 4-year degree, a good way for you forward would be to do the associates here and then transfer to San Diego State, probably there specifically because the program with Dr. Waters and Dr. Warren there caters to a lot of us are actually doing, wanting to record and make our own music and produce everything from start to end. Most universities you go to do not teach you that, actually. They teach you to be a classical musician performer, or they teach you at the UCs and equivalents to make weird academic experimental electronic music that most people would not pay for. Essentially, it's really interesting, and it can be something that you love. It's just that essentially people go to conferences at universities and they play their music for other professors and present papers on it. Many of them aren't even directly doing music, but they're doing research about music and writing papers about music and writing computer programs that do things related to music. So wide spectrum there. There's other options too. You can go off to technical schools themselves, schools that just emphasize learning recording arts. It doesn't mean that you're getting a worse education. It means there's different approaches to learning whatever subject you're in. And if you're doing the traditional American academic version of things, it's emphasizing a general education in addition to long-standing traditions in certain areas. For newer things, sometimes you do things like go get an Ableton Live certification or Pro Tools certification or something, and then you become really technically proficient in a current DAW. So I don't think any of those things are bad ways to go about. It's just you kind of have to do a back and forth a little bit and say, well, what are my goals here? I want to be able to do this, this, and this. Where do I go? I'll say a final thing you can and should do is also look at the offerings of City College. City College is also in your district, and will have similar things, but they have more electronic music offerings or they did anyway, in areas that we don't also have at Mesa. Some of them may play better over the internet, of course, too. So mileage may vary. Is any of this helping anyone? Or are there questions that are better that you'd like me to answer, or stuff you would like me to clarify? I made some statements, some of which are I'm a bit hesitant about but I want to I don't want to put a judgment on things, but I kind of want to tell you some things that I never knew about when I got into things. And then when I got into school, I was so stoked to get into school. I'm like, oh, what? This is what we're learning? And if you're interested too, I try not to throw this on people, but I can tell you kind of some classes and things I did while at UCSB versus SDSU, and what I did at a community college. If you're not particularly interested in my story of it too, a great resource for you is to find people that you know that have recently gotten degrees in places and ask them to tell you about what they learned and not what their experiences, what sucked and what was good. Because then you get a real experience of it other than what's written on this page. I mean, this tells you something, but when you talk to students and talk to people who've been through it, they can give you some real perspective on things, right? I personally was a performance studies major at Grossmont College, another college here, did piano performance, took all the music theory, ear training, ensembles, all that type of stuff. And then I ended up transferring to UC Santa Barbara to their College of Creative Studies, where I studied music composition and learned to write for orchestra and acoustic instruments, while also taking 2 years of electronic music classes, learning experimental techniques in electronic music. And I took weekly music composition lessons with a teacher, where I would listen to all kinds of crazy music and write stuff and bring it back to him each week. And then ultimately, I would have to present music that I had written. It had all be printed out and recorded, and then I would turn in portfolio stuff that I had as my jury to see whether I passed each semester. So, and then at the end of all that, I had to give 2 different recitals of all of my music, where I had to find a bunch of people to play all my music or play it myself, and figure out a venue to do it in, and put on all the works and showcase it. So that was undergraduate stuff, a mix of things. And most of the music that we were learning there was very out there stuff, what's called 20th century classical and 20th century electronic music. None of it at all was anything related to dance music or popular music like you'd normally hear. I still enjoyed a lot of it, though. A lot of weird and interesting stuff that I wouldn't have gotten from any other route. And let's see. In grad school, I mostly made stuff. I made compositions that were essentially like performance / composition. Like I made something. I was interested in making interactive systems for computers and humans. So I made something, for instance, where I had a pair of bongos that I would play with microphones near it, and every time I hit a bongo, the computer would be listening to it with a microphone, and the computer could hear how fast I would be playing. And as I changed the speed of how fast I was playing, because it would be listening and dividing the amount of beats per minute, it would follow me, and it would open up different filters and stuff and change the way the sounded of the drums in real time as I played. I made stuff where a related piece where I was playing all these on these instruments, and as I played it, every time I hit a bongo, it would trigger pictures and videos to play. And if I played them harder, it would change the color of the pictures and do stuff like this. So I'm having stuff that I'm doing that's interacting with the computer that people can experience in real time. I did sonic experiments where I manipulated this, created pitches out of all kinds of things that traditionally didn't make pitch. Like if you pan back and forth in the speakers fast enough, it actually creates a tone. So I would take one sound and create all these chords out of it using unusual mechanisms that you wouldn't expect. So lots of sonic explorations. Actually, I also wrote some film score for some shark movie and this type of stuff. But I had a lot of very out there stuff. This program that you're seeing on screen at the moment, this is what I did a lot of work in grad school, and will continue to be working on. This is called Max MSP, and this particular thing uses this. So this program basically lets you build anything you want in music or visuals and stuff. You just say, I want a new thing. called MIDI format or something called make note. I want a keyboard thing that I'm going to connect to MIDI output. And I want to, I don't know, make a metronome that'll play back and hit out notes for me. And you can build things by just creating little blocks that do things and then put together anything you want to happen. Let's see. I'm going to show you some of these. So this is like, it's music stuff, but it's in a very different way that people often aren't thinking about in music. I'm building something, I think I told you, to work in Ableton Live. This is the most recent one I have on here. Actually, I think I have a more recent one than that. That's weird. I should say ear trainer.
Have you always been like interested and fascinated about sounds and everything ever since you were a child, or like you got to a point and you started learning and you started learning more, or like you were born like that?
Yeah, so I always liked music. My granny would always, and my mom always said, and who knows how these stories are as a parent, you can't necessarily trust them on these things, but I have a big scar around the middle of my waist because when I was a little baby, I had to go to the hospital 2 different times because some of the tubes connecting to my kidney weren't working properly. This is actually going somewhere. So I had to go to the hospital in the emergency in the room. They had to cut me open completely and clean out basically like a pipe cleaner of sorts these tubes, so I wouldn't have mineral deposits built up. And they said when I was in there on they said it was my first birthday, first or second, I think it's first, I don't know, and I couldn't even speak yet. But here I was, and it was my birthday, and they told me it was my birthday, and they said I was singing. This is how they say it. I was singing this happy birthday song. They're like, "Oh my God, he's so musical." I was always interested in music, and when I was 5, my dad said, "Yeah, you want to try to play some instruments?" And we went to a place that said you could kind of just try out whatever you wanted. And they had a violin there. I'm like, that's cool. So I started playing actually violin, but in style of country and bluegrass. I played fiddle. So I played bluegrass fiddle basically by ear. And then I got really angry as a 6-year-old when they tried to make me learn music and I quit. But I still would play by ear. And then when my dad would play guitar, he didn't really read music either, but my dad would play guitar, and he would always just ask me to make up stuff from him. And as a kid, you just do what your parents tell you because you don't really know that you could potentially even say no. And I didn't think, oh, well, what if I can't make it up? I just go, all right. So I'd like listen and just play stuff if it sounded right to me. And I did that stuff for a while. But then I got interested in keyboards because I heard like there's cool sounds you could make on keyboards. And I would go down on my bike to the equivalent of like some crappier Guitar Center. I'd ride my bike down there and I would play whatever keyboard synthesizers they had there until they kicked me out. And I was always fascinated with the different sounds you could make, like this whole world of sounds that maybe new sounds I could have never imagined. So that and the ability to play more than one note at the same time really got me interested in keyboards. And a friend of mine played this song called Heart and Soul that I could only play like the melody part, not the other part. And I saw him play both at the same time. I'm like, that is the most crazy thing. He played the melody and the harmony at the same time. I got to learn to play piano. So I started taking lessons then when I was about 12. And from whoever is basically the cheapest, because my parents didn't have a whole lot of money. So it was like someone that's the cheapest or someone from our church. And I was, all about it. And they didn't have to ask me to practice. I played all the time. I wasn't very good because honestly, the teachers I had weren't very good and didn't know how to correct me in things and so on. And, but yeah, I was always super into it. At the same time, ever since I was a little kid, I was always interested in science and interested in just understanding why things are the way they are. So I was buying stuff at Radio Shack and connecting circuits together and trying to build stuff. And I've been collecting magnets since I was 5 years old also. So I have like a huge horseshoe magnet and rare earth magnets and electromagnets and stuff. And I kind of assumed actually when I went to community college that I was going to be either a physics or biology major. And then I saw when I was going through trying to select all the things I needed to take to transfer into a counselor, they're like, you have to take all this, same thing I told you today, to go to CSU or whatever. I looked and they're like, oh man, there's music classes here. Whoa. So that blew my mind because I didn't realize that they had music classes at colleges. I thought it was like you just do it privately. So I signed up for a music theory class. And I thought it blew my mind because I didn't know that you could understand more deeply about music things. And no one in my family knew about that stuff. So I thought that was super interesting. And then I went downhill or from there. I started taking every single music class they offered. I took all the music theory, all the piano classes, all the performance class. Got into the singing class because some girl there I thought was cute. And so I took the class just to see her. And I realized afterwards that the singing was pretty cool, and I was quite embarrassed and not very good. But I got better over time too, and I really enjoyed that community aspect. And at some point, when I saw that I was taking every single class you need to take from a major, I just said, I guess I'm a music major. And my problem always was I like everything. So I'm interested in everything from arts to science to whatever. And a lot of people I knew were like, no, I knew for sure I'm all about music. I never knew for sure that I was all about music. I just knew that when I didn't play it or do it, I wasn't happy. And so it needed to play some role in my life. And later on, this type of stuff came. Here's building an ear training program where I can play different notes and stuff, and it'll tell me if I'm correct or not. How do we edit? Oh no, forgot. I made this as a standalone program. Maybe okay. I started getting interested in like technology and music and how they come together. This program right here. No, quit. We're gonna open up this one. Open with. That's what happened. Okay. The program Ableton Live that Madi that you're using was actually built using this program. Oops. Nope, not that one. Don't save.
I'm just gonna end up getting both Ableton Live, and because I got comfortable as I was with Pro Tools when we were still going to campus.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear that Ableton Live is pretty good for production, making beats, and for the live performance, live music, and Pro Tools is good for like recording, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a decent summary. So if I go into live, so I'm gonna close your session for a moment because we don't want to let people hear it yet.
Can you do like fade out? Is that a possible for MIDI at the end?
Yes, kind of. So it's just thought of in a different way, but yeah. So what you would do, I'll just reopen yours again. Yeah.
So it's too comfortable with Audacity.
Yeah, it's really better to use something like Ableton or Pro Tools. Audacity has some roles in it, but for a lot of stuff you're going to want to do, this will be a much better fit. And learning this is I think worthwhile. Pro Tools, same thing. Pro Tools, the best thing that it does, and it does other things too. Its biggest aim is for doing recording of like live bands and this type of stuff. It can do other things too. It's just its tools excel for doing recording audio, with microphones and instruments, recording wave files and editing them, and then it has a lot of great decent tools for mixing too. So there's good things that it has there for live recording of microphones and audio and mixing, and it also has various bigger versions of it that if you use with super expensive hardware, you can do high-end productions of like large film style productions. because the parent company of them, Avid, it produces all these high-end film editing programs that are used in Hollywood and stuff. Avid Media Composer and things like that. And the Pro Tools Ultimate has things like, ability to mix and surround sound, ability to have multiple video tracks also loaded in it that you can synchronize along with, and all this type of stuff. And can work with external audio-only computers made by Pro Tools that you can connect to the system so that your computer doesn't have any issues with lag and stuff. So there's giant solutions you can get through them for those type of things. For most people doing singer-songwriter stuff or doing their own production, all that is total overkill and not what you're going to be doing anyway. And many people will be doing a combination of making recordings and MIDI production stuff. And for those people, I recommend typically something like Ableton or Logic or Cubase, something like that. Pro Tools can totally do it all too. And so I guess one more caveat I would say is, if you know how to do a lot of stuff in a program, it's fine just to keep using that program, because then you're spending most of your time working on things artistically and not all your time learning stuff. If I didn't have to teach a class in Pro Tools or some other DAW, I wouldn't be using as many DAWs. But I have to continually learn how to use basics and all kinds of different DAWs in order to be a more useful teacher and to keep up with things. It takes other time though that I could be using to make stuff, right? So same thing for you. If you're messing with too many DAWs, at some point, you're slowed down from having a faster process. So let's answer your question. How do we take this DAW and do a fade out? The answer is you do it with audio, actually, not with MIDI. Although you can do it kind of like that. So I can go into here and I can hit A for automation. And then for any of these tracks, I can select, oh no, that's not my automation. I can select what I want to do for the loudness of it on the actual track volume. I can click on here, it says track volume. And then now, even though it's not MIDI itself, it's the audio output from that MIDI. I can take that and I can draw a line that goes from whatever loudness of it is down to 0. If I wanted to do that for every single track, okay, I would hit the A button again. A means automation, or I can go probably as an edit or something. I don't actually know. I just know the shortcut. Probably view or something. Yeah, view, automation. Then I go over here in the master, hit A, and I say, what do I want to do? Ableton, you just click on the thing you want, and then that shows up here. I want to automate the master volume output. So I click on this, my main volume. Now I go in here, click a little node, click another one, and then I pull down here. And now this will fade out the whole thing.
Yeah, the master track, it was there automatically. So I was like, why is it there? But I guess even if it's not there, you can still edit the whole thing.
Yeah, now in Pro Tools, it doesn't exist automatically. You have to put one there. The reason why is because they don't necessarily assume you're only using a master in the traditional way. A master track is simply a bus or an auxiliary channel that all the other tracks are funneled into.
Okay, there was reverb and what's the other one? And delay too, but I deleted them because I was like, why is it there?
Yeah, so on here in Ableton, it actually has these other tracks that always in it by default. And in Pro Tools, I showed you guys how there's these things called auxiliary tracks. You create some track that's not for recording, but for storing plugins on. Ableton by default, let's see, what are they? Ableton by default shows those. Oh yeah, you deleted it in yours, but so I'm gonna open up a different track. I'm possibly going to open it. Maybe it's stored on a different hard drive. I can't remember. It automatically creates in Ableton these other tracks, reverb and delay. These are not for recording onto. they're only for, my goodness, hardcore using the heck out of my processor. I shouldn't be having 59% of my processor used. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to change this thing to more samples to be using. Now it's at 17%. Okay. This is an auxiliary track. So an auxiliary track has, you can store things like reverb, delay, other plugins and stuff, and then you can take any track you have and you can send it to the auxiliary track to get processing done on it. It's like an external effect on a mixer. And so then everyone here, you see how it says sends AB, sends AB. If I want, I can go into any track I want. Say I wanted to go onto this not voice track. If I do this, turn it up on A, it sends it over to reverb. If I turn it up on B, it sends it over to B, delay. And it adds reverb or delay onto any of these other tracks just by turning up and down this track, send. The point of it is then if you have 50 tracks, you can just put one reverb over here and one delay over here, and you can decide for each different track how much of the track you want to send over to get processed on the effect. You can set up as many of these as you want and have more sends and stuff in here. You have more of these up here. But Ableton defaults to having them. If you don't want, you don't have to see them. You can not show these R for effects returns are called. You send it and return it. So you can just toggle this little switch and not see them. Pro Tools doesn't have that sitting there by default, but you can make them, right? You can just go track, new track, and you make one called an auxiliary input. I'm going to give it a name like reverb. And then on this reverb one, I add a reverb plugin. And then any track I want to have reverb on, I can send over to this reverb station and it'll add reverb onto it. So Pro Tools, you have to set that up because they basically don't try to set up anything for you. They just say you set it up however you like. But in Ableton, that's a default. If you wanted to have stuff like that made for you, another thing you can do in Pro Tools and many DAWs too, I'm going to say create new here. When I say create new, I'm going to go to create from template. There's various things in here: music, guitar, post-production. Post-production would be like once you've done recording everything and you're doing the editing and mixing stage, it'll have setups for that. Record and mix. Songwriter will have a bunch of probably background drum track and synthesizers and things, and audio track for recording. So some of these templates and stuff are already sitting here. Let's see what happens if I click it there. Songwriter, guitarist. Songwriter, guitarist, lower CPU usage. Pianist or whatever. Okay. I'm going to go actually to post-production and see what they have here. Basic stereo with voiceover. Maybe this one, maybe get a record and mix. So look what it says here. It's going to have 24 tracks plus EQ and effects returns. Again, there's those channels where you send sound to in Ableton over here. It says R. This disclosure triangle at the bottom here tells you what everything is I recommended. You hover over there, hover over here. Oops. Show, hide, return tracks. The idea is you send out sound to a effects area, and once it's processed by that reverb or delay, it sends it back or returns it back to your track. So it's R for effects returns. I'm going to do this one here, 24 EQ plus effects returns. And then this template will already have a bunch of tracks for you in Pro Tools set up. Come on. if I look to the right, right over here, I see reverb, delay, chorus. They have a special headphone only mix, click track. Okay. And on each of these areas, these kind of greenish ones, these are all effects buses. Then you can see on this area called sends, each of these tracks can send its information, send its sound over to these effects returns. So different DAWs going about it in different ways. The workflow in one may be faster for one type of thing, or another. So this thing I was showing you earlier that they originally used to build Ableton Live in, it's completely different than a DAW in a normal sense because everything here has to be built from the ground up. So I'm showing the edit view where I can see all the stuff I made. And I'm making something that generates chords and stuff automatically. And ultimately then writes them into Ableton Live. It works as a plugin there. This is the working view, but if I go to this view, this is what it ultimately look like in Ableton Live. And you'll be able to select what chords you want to use and stuff like this, and it'll write them into the timeline here. So it's musical stuff, but it's really not like the way you typically thinking of, right? Like I wanted to do stuff to make it musical assistant stuff that can help you do stuff in music. And so I'm building it in this kind of musical programming language thing. So very different styles of doing things, but are all music, right? This type of thing, building this is more like a UCSD style thing you'd be working on. Or crazy, weird sounding music for orchestra or for electronic sounds and stuff. So let's wrap everything up here. If you're looking to do more music stuff at Mesa or anywhere, right now is, just a crazy time. And unfortunately, no one really has great answers because we don't know what's going on sometimes from day to day. That being said, I recommend that if you're trying to go forward with music or anything, don't let this screwed up time stop you from doing things. Take a time each day to recoup and kind of refocus on, get your head straight and this type of thing. And try to figure out some stuff that you can make sure to happen. And I recommend, again, if you're doing any of these programs, if you haven't taken it, take the Music 150 class. Because it's a prerequisite for so many classes. Another thing is you could take classes that aren't really, really based upon your need of using hardware. If there's a time when you have a class to take a lab on, this is not the time to take that lab class. Unless you desperately need it, take something else in order, right? Again, the typical thing is Music Tool 1, but it may be better to do some other ones. Okay? Tool 1 may or may not work. What else should you do? Once you've kind of looked in here on the music page, and I'll just post this for you too. Once you've looked at some of these options here, look up the specific teacher teaching that class, okay? And ask your teacher about the class, because they're probably working on plans, trying to figure out as fast as they can how to make that class work, or they may have more ideas about what they're going to try to do for the class during the semester. They also may be able to elucidate what's going on and tell you about specific projects and how they go about things in class, right? So check out the music program, look at the specific classes, read about what their descriptions are by clicking on these little links. And then if you're not sure about how the class would go, contact the professor of that class. And if you're having issues doing that, let me know. I can help assist you in that. For our class, we're basically over. We're done. There's a ton more stuff to do in the future, right? It's an intro class. So we have to look at large areas of music things, all the ideas of audio, of acoustics, of MIDI, of different hardware and software, of putting it together, and light ideas of mixing and stuff. There's a ton of stuff involved in it. Each of these areas itself can become an area that you focus a lot more time on afterwards, right? That's why it's an intro, very broad perspective class. So MESA specifically offers a couple different ways to go about that. Music technology, composition or theory, you can get certificates here. The Associates of Art is a bigger thing. Music studies. This has Art Studies 1, 2. You can click and see what each of these things are specifically. Music studies is the one you do for the 2-year. Associates of Art, or AA for Associates of Art. It has more classes, and then it has general education requirements. So as an additional courses to meet graduation requirements, general education and electives need to be met as well. So it ends up being 60 plus units. I actually, when I did my, I didn't know about all this stuff at first. I was just taking random classes. And then when I did all this too at the community college, I was interested in a bunch of other stuff. So I took a bunch of classes I didn't have to. I had like 115 units or some crazy thing. Took a million other classes I didn't need. You may want to do that too. Take all the classes that you have to, and even just take some other stuff that you're just interested in. Take a class in photography or something like that, or anthropology, or whatever happens to interest you. I found that different classes I've taken outside of music too informed my creative process in music and gave me different ideas to have. That may be the case for you. I think it's just the two of you here at the moment. Any other questions or areas I could go over for you at the moment? No. And how are you doing, Bill, with your stuff in your project? Or your
I'm almost done.
Cool.
I've got 2 tracks I've got to add, probably about, 36 measures each. But I've got 70 some measures on 5 tracks, except for that. So I just have to finish it up and shorten it, get it to run faster.
Yeah.
And then I'm pretty much done. Maybe do some panning and stuff, but that shouldn't take too long.
Cool. Well, thank you each guys for getting on it, getting your stuff done. For next steps stuff, we'll maybe do a tiny bit more of that on Thursday too. Just depends on how much time it takes to play projects and so on. For next step stuff for you outside of this, I recommend, and I can't recommend highly enough, make music, force yourself to make new projects, come up with deadlines for yourself, or find other people that want music or want to collaborate, because it'll give you social responsibility to finish something. And there's no better way really to learn than to just make more things. As much as you can be told there's this thing, that thing, the other, it doesn't fully help you until you actually try to produce something and have issues and problems. Then you learn more and more of what it means to have issues with your production. So don't stop making things after the class happens. Continue to make music, and then use YouTube as a reference for things too. Keep adding to your vocabulary of what it means, right? For you, Marty, maybe look into effects returns in Ableton. Or you may see, with me here, I have groups of tracks. These are all grouped together. This is all my non-vocal tracks. And so you get making more and more tracks, and you'll start looking at organizational things that make sense in your particular DAW. It's different how it works in Pro Tools or Ableton or whatever. But the more you make music and the bigger you make stuff, the more you start having things that annoy you. You're like, isn't there a better way to do this? Or is there a way I can combine this all together? And you start learning like deeper processes that would be used by people producing it. Partly because of the problems you have, and partly just because of as you do things, certain things you do when you're making music trigger questions and new ideas. So your best teacher really is you, after you take the ideas and start working with them. And then when you get to when you do a lot of stuff too, it also helps inform your own brain of what things you might want to, what areas you might want to go to get help in next. You're like, maybe I'm having a lot of issues in all this area, and it seems like I want to focus on that. Without doing more stuff, sometimes you're going to be less aware of what you might need or what things might actually be interesting to you. So I honestly find myself a lot of times watching workflow videos, how people do stuff, and I'll watch it in like different production techniques to see how people make music. So you could look up, for instance, like Ableton Live hip hop production techniques, or reggae production techniques, or live production techniques. If you do live production too, you'll start to see all these different tool sets people use that are normally used in that way of producing things, and that can be interesting. I think you're going to be creating your own music and stuff, Bill, or looking to make covers, or just perform and play and record. What type of goals?
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to be doing.
It should be fun, whatever it is, though.
Yeah.
I showed you guys this last time, right? I showed you guys. I think I did. Yeah, I went over that. There's plugins and stuff that help you write chords and melodies and stuff, right? Showed you those things. Or was that the? Yeah, that was this class rather than. But there's stuff like that too. You might consider other instruments or tech and stuff. Is that some of the new stuff you said there, Madi? That vocal shield and. Got some new exciting things.
That's one of my new investment.
Mm-hmm.
When I have time, because they just reopened Samash in Lemon Grove. So when I have time, I just go there and look at the equipment. And like when I'm home and I want to do some stuff, I realize that I don't have the right equipment, so I don't have it at all. Mm-hmm. So I went to Samash and they recommended me that, and I kind of looked it online how good it is, and I was like, okay. I told you my unemployment money that's right. I didn't want to spend it on something that's not gonna last me long, or something stupid, right. Maybe my nails or maybe makeup. So I was like, before I spend this money, let me invest it in something that's gonna last me a long time. So they were able to give me like advices of like that thing, what's that gonna do? And I just got a rag because my room is like the flooring is no carpet.
Okay.
And they were saying that that's really bad, that's very bad environment to record. So make sure I at least have they gave me advices of like that's something that I already learned in this class. Mm-hmm. But about the floor, they say make sure I'm always like far away from the floor and put like a carpet to reduce
yeah. In fact, you can take a rug and you can get like a cheap rug from some used place or something, or garage sale, anything like that. And if you put it on the ground, essentially like what you're looking at is when we were talking about echoing stuff, one of the main things you have problems with is you get hard surfaces and it reflects really a ton off the hard surfaces. So if you put even like a blanket from a bed or whatever, it doesn't have to be, it could be whatever. You put things like that, if you hang them up on the wall, and you on the walls where you're around, and you do the similar type of thing for the floor, it reduces the amount of the up and down fluctuations of sounds, reflections, and the left and right, all these ones, and it makes it a lot less heavy. There's going to be a lot less kind of like bright metallic-ish sound that you get ringing around in your room. So you'll get less of that and more of just your actual voice. That the vocal shield thing does the same type of thing, right? It prevents sound from hitting the microphone from these different angles, and acts as an absorber and a reflector. Yeah, some people will just get a little closet and sing or do podcasts like in a little closet because it's small and they can kind of like try to pad all the areas around.
Yeah, I wanted to closet, but my neighbors are so loud. Already they're like right behind the closet. Yeah. So that wasn't a good idea. Yeah, you got to figure out something that works for you, and that's that's in your space and realistically. So that's good. And then
As you
Yeah.
get more equipment and do stuff, yeah, it's a nice way to do it. You have some basic idea of what's causing the problems. You can go back and you can look at some of the lectures and the acoustics and look at the other types of things and talk to them there. And but the carpets and the blankets make a big difference. And if you have anything sitting on like a microphone stand sitting on an area too, you can put stuff under it. Oh, hey, look at that!
Yeah.
Nice.
Uh,
Apollo.
twin.
So those are super high-end audio interfaces. And they're actually very expandable too if you want to record a bunch of other stuff. But they sound good and they have like I was showing you, they have built-in processing on them. So they have audio processors inside of that actual audio interface. And you can put effects plugins directly on it, and it won't even have to be running in Ableton. But yeah, that'll be great. So I'm looking forward to kind of hearing about that. So Thursday we do our stuff. We'll present whoever is here. I'll put up some announcement about some of the tentpole things I was saying, just major things for like getting through the class and the rest of it. And then if we get done with stuff early enough, I'll just kind of let us talk about whatever things students want to talk about. So student-led questions or questions, problems, points of, things to do next type of stuff. Because after any class is done, I always think, it seems fine. And then the next week you're like, what next? And I don't have access to talking to these people anymore. What's going to happen over summer? And I want you all to have some type of thoughts and path forward for your next series of musical things when there's no longer the same structure, of being there each week type of thing. So we'll do that, and that is about it. It winds up the craziest semester ever, right? Where we had 8 months of class in 5 weeks or whatever that was. I'm gonna go eat some homemade beans now. Sounds super exciting, right?
Yeah. Okay,
Come on
I'm
back.
taking off then.
See you all.
Okay.